Good morning. Welcome to our worship service from the Unitarian Society of Northampton and Florence. I'm very glad to see you here. I'm John Sass, and I'm the chair of the Stewardship Committee. I want to thank Amanda Van Lankveld and Rebecca Smith for serving as our tech hosts this morning. I need my glasses. We strive to be a congregation that welcomes people of all ages, races, religious beliefs, backgrounds, gender identities, and abilities. We belong to the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, and we are guided and inspired by its values and principles. Those values and principles move us to remember that we in Northampton inhabit unceded land of the Pecumtuck and Nipmuc peoples. Our values and principles remind us to acknowledge our responsibility to face all the painful legacies of dispossession and systemic racism that are part of our collective history, even as we affirm and celebrate the legacies that inspire us. We are here to support and celebrate one another and to renew ourselves with hope and gratitude and new resolve. If you are new or returning after a time away, welcome. We're very glad you're here. Please feel free to fill out a virtual visitor card. Doing that allows us to put you on our email contact list. There's a link to the card in the chat. We ask that you remain muted throughout the service and turn off your videos except during the greeting in order to help the technology work as smoothly as possible. We hope you'll stay for social hour afterwards. It's a great way to engage in meaningful conversations with people you might not otherwise have met. And now we'll begin our service.
Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless the world. Your mind's power, the strength of your hands, the reaches of your heart, the gifts of speaking, listening, seeing, waiting. Any of these can serve to feed the hungry, bind up wounds, welcome strangers, do the work of justice, or offer love. Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless the world.
Thank you, Craig. And now I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join Michael in saying the words to accompany lighting the chalice as Judy Hyde lights it for us here in the Great Hall.
We light our chalice as a beacon of hope, a sign of our quest for truth and meaning. We light our chalice as a beacon of love, in celebration of the life we share together.
Our story this morning is called The Apple Tree by Sandy Tharp Thie. And this story is a Cherokee tale. Sandy Tharp Thie is an enrolled member of the Cherokee Nation, and she's a tribal librarian. So you might notice, even on this title page, there's some letters that you might not recognize right there. And this book is written both in English and using the Cherokee syllabary, which was created in 1821. So here's a diagram of it, and you'll notice on each page there's some Cherokee language. And this story I really like because it reminds me that generosity is reciprocal. The Apple Tree. Let me get it ready. There we go. One day, a little Cherokee boy planted an apple seed in his backyard. The boy watered the seed and kept the weeds away. One morning, a seedling appeared. The little boy said, "Look at you. Once you were just a seed, now you're an apple tree." He put a sign around the tree so no one would step on it. Apple tree. In no time at all, the seedling grew branches and more leaves. The boy was so proud. "Look at you. Once you were just a seed, now you're an apple tree. You're beautiful." The little tree really was not so beautiful, but because the little boy loved the tree so much, the tree felt beautiful. Still, a few days later, the boy found the little apple tree sad and droopy. "What's wrong, little tree?" the boy asked. "What good is an apple tree that makes no apples?" asked the little tree. The boy replied, When we are big, we will both be able to do lots of things. Yet, as he walked away, he saw the tree still looked sad. That night, as the tree slept, the boy tied a big red apple on a branch of the little apple tree. The next morning, the boy went to check on his friend. "Look at you! You have a big red apple," he said. The little apple tree said, "You have cared for me and loved me. I'd like you to have my first red apple." "Thank you," the boy said. And he took a great big bite. Delicious. As the seasons passed, the boy and the apple tree grew. They both grew tall and strong. Once again, the boy went to the tree. "Look at you, once just a tiny seed. Now you're an apple tree. You're beautiful." The apple tree was beautiful. Pink blossoms covered it from tip to top. Butterflies, birds, and honeybees came to visit. And when the pink blossoms fell off, yellow apples took their place. So many yellow apples, the branches bowed from their weight. Once again, the boy said to the tree, "Look at you. You were once just a seed. Now you're a big apple tree." The apple tree replied, "Yes, I'm a big apple tree now, and these yellow apples are very grand, but I'll never forget my first apple, the one the Creator made red, just to show how much I am loved." And that's the end of our story.
And now please again rise in body or spirit as you are so moved, and join together in singing hymn number 44, "We Sing of Golden Mornings."
We sing of golden mornings, we sing of sparkling seas, of prairies, valleys, mountains, and stately forest trees. We sing of flashing sunshine and light bestowing rain, of birds among the branches, and springtime come again. We sing the heart courageous, the youthful eager mind. We sing of love's unbroken, of friendly ways and kind. We sing the roses waiting beneath the deep wild source. We sing the earth's great splendor, whose beauty round us flows.
Good morning and welcome. It's now time for us to greet one another. You are invited to turn on your videos, wave, and say hello in the chat. If you are new or newish and would like to, please say hello and tell us where you're from. We can all put Zoom in gallery view, which can be found in the upper right corner of your screen. There should be a button showing several white boxes labeled View. This will allow you to see all the smiling faces in one screen.
Hello, smiling faces. It's great to see you all. How is everyone this morning? Okay? Oh, 2 thumbs up from the showed-offs. That's good. Teresa Mabile says good morning to everybody. Hello, Larry Perellis. Nice to see you. Hey, Wally and Paula. Great to see you. Who else is on my screen? Diane, Alan, Andrea. Liz, Ann, Lynn Marie, Barbara. Good morning, Rick. Good morning, Julie, Jim, Kit, Ginny. Everybody's waving. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Waiting for the snow, which we're not going to get very much of, which is great. Hello, Janet Clark. Nice to see you. Who else is newish? Michael, it was wonderful to see you and all our stewardship people. I don't know, I haven't seen Patty yet. We'll see if Patty has on a bow tie. But someone said before the service, oh, it's bow tie Sunday, and all our stewardship people like to wear bow ties, so that's nice to see them all. All right, it's great to see you. Please consider staying for social hour after the service, and you'll have a chance to actually hear each other and have a good conversation. And now, Naomi Clayman. Oh no, now we're going to sing everybody out. We're going to sing out everybody who's going to religious education activities. So the words will be on the screen in just a sec.
Good morning. Hello, everyone. My name is Naomi Clayman, also known as Neem, and I'm here to offer up a Social Justice Minute, or 3, as the co-editor of Unitarian Society of Northampton and Florence's newsletter, formerly known as Pioneer. For decades now, this name seemed fitting, both geographically, Pioneer Valley, and spiritually, in our Unitarian Universalist self-image of being bold and creative risk takers. There's plenty of cultural infrastructure to support its use. Historically, the word pioneer conjures up images of brave families traveling into the wilderness and recreating civilization, courageous souls who adapted to hardship with steely determination. It's an almost mythic identity of deep appeal, for white people anyway, signifying fortitude, vision, and adaptability, the pinnacle of the American spirit, right? But, and you knew this but was coming, right? Pioneer is yet another example of a word that serves to whitewash US history. We know full well that pioneers did not arrive to an empty or savage land. Instead, they settled into the homelands of people who had lived here for thousands of years, displacing them with imprisonment, forced migration, and death. Racist concepts formed the scaffolding of white European settlement. At the same time, there were pioneers who did not choose this path, but had it thrust upon them. In addition to hardy explorers and families seeking to live in the New World, pioneers were convicts, famine victims, orphan children shipped to the colonies as indentured servants. Many were displaced from their homes due to war, religious conflicts, or unimaginable poverty. Some were headed elsewhere and simply shipwrecked upon our shores. So, there are a multitude of assumptions packed into the word pioneer that make it problematic and toxic, especially to Native Americans whose history continues to be largely ignored. Therefore, we at USNF decided to retire the name Pioneer, seeking a new one that better reflects our values of inclusivity and our work towards the dismantling of white supremacy. So what will this new name be? Well, you all have a voice in the choice. In December and January, we actively solicited suggestions. Thank you to all who shared yours. After sifting out over half for practical or process reasons, we have landed on a list of about 10. In the next few days, you will receive a form allowing you to use ranked choice voting to pick your favorite 3. A new name will be selected from that process, so stay tuned and make sure to weigh in. As a nation, as a community, as a faith, we continue to identify and root out the oppressive language we have used and been comfortable with for years. A new name for our newsletter is a small but highly visible way we can practice our UU principles of inclusivity and truth-telling. Finally, we are grateful to Camilla Brush and Lucy Bruce for bringing the idea of retiring the pioneer to the forefront. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Naomi. It's now time for us to listen to Lemmy and take the time that we would normally take in our regular worship service to pass the plate. Last Monday, the Coordinating Council chose several organizations that will receive 50% of the money we collect that we're calling our Sunday offering for the rest of the year. And they are the Movement Voter Project, again, Hands Up for Haiti. We've been supporting organizations in Haiti and efforts in Haiti for quite a while. Cathedral in the Night, which is the meal that happens once a week for homeless people on Sundays. First Nations Development Institute's COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund. Several people said we need to start doing something to address, put some of our money behind our conviction that we need to address systemic racism and the way that Native Americans have been treated throughout our history. So that's a first attempt at that. The Pioneer Valley Workers Center, who is our partner in immigration and other work. And we also support the Interfaith Help Fund as they need our funds. So every dollar that you send and that you designate for our offering goes half to the work of the society directly and half to these wonderful organizations. Thank you very much, and we'll now listen to our offertory music.
Good morning. I'm Kamala Brush. Lucy and I first came to FUSP to USNF in March 2016. We were planning a move from New Jersey, and we were visiting the area to consider the Valley as our new home. High on our list of criteria was a local Unitarian Universalist society. So we wanted to suss the place out. What was it like? We returned from New Jersey for a second visit in May. That Sunday, there was a picnic after the service. We stayed, we ate veggie burgers, and we talked in the sunshine. Now, as I pull the programs for those first services out of my file, I see how many of the then unknown names listed as choir members and spring flower donors have become folks with whom we've shared much. Some live near us at Lathrop. Some became Sunday morning pew neighbors. And in the new ways we now meet and connect, we see some in groups and committees and as buddies on Zoom. Over the years, we've shared soup making and woods walking, marching and volunteering. We've marked milestones of celebration and grief. We've read books and watched films. We've learned and discussed challenging subjects. We've played games. We've sung together and listened to wonderful music through the programs created by our remarkable music directors. USNF has become what we hoped for in that spring 5 years ago. In the words we say so often as we light our chalice, a community where we celebrate the life we share together.
Good morning, I'm Lucy Baruch. And a while ago on a non-UU Zoom, when someone asked about my pandemic heroes, Janet and Jessica's names were among those I typed into the chat. In an email I sent to them recently, I wrote, "Hello, Wonder Women. I keep expecting to see them on Zoom dressed in capes." And the cool thing is that while Janet and Jessica and everyone on the staff has stepped up in amazing ways, they are not alone. It's moving to witness how our congregation is meeting these challenging times. Who doesn't love to hear Kathy Lilly tell us how breakout rooms work or Steve O'Day tell us to mute ourselves? We are grateful to Rebecca and Amanda and to all the tech hosts who bring us Sunday mornings. This past year, Kamala and I have appreciated being part of each of our connection circles and Thursday meditation gatherings, as well as learning and growing alongside the racial justice team. I recently took a lovely walk along the river in Arcadia with my friend and dialogue buddy and felt so grateful to be on this journey within our congregation. Among the ways that our Unitarian Society has clearly shown that we aren't made up just of sprinters is through our sanctuary work. Throughout our nearly 3-year relay in support of Arita and her family, one of the things we have been struck by is how, in coming together to try and help keep this one family from being torn apart, we have strengthened our connections to other local congregations and to the wider community. We are grateful members of USNF, and we thank you.
And now we get to hear a video from our UUUks. Thanks to all of them, and a shout out to Kim Wolfson and Carl Moore for inspiration, organization, and production.
Oh, we don't have a barrel of money. Maybe we're ragged and funny, but we'll travel along, singing a song, side by side. We don't know what's coming tomorrow. Maybe it's trouble and sorrow, but we'll travel around, sharing a singing a song, side by side. we're traveling along, singing a song, side by side.
Our meditation is a poem by Alberto Rios. He titled it, When Giving is All We Have. One river gives its journey to the next. We give because someone gave to us. We give because nobody gave to us. We give because giving has changed us. We give because giving could have changed us. We have been better for it. We have been wounded by it. Giving has many faces. It is loud and quiet, big, though small, diamond in wood nails. Its story is old, the plot worn, and the pages too, but we read the book anyway, over and over again. Giving is, first and every time, hand to hand, mine to yours, yours to mine. You gave me blue, and I gave you yellow. Together we are simple green. You gave me what you did not have, and I gave you what I had to give. Together, we made something greater from the difference. Let's take a moment together in silence. Unmute, Patty. You need to unmute yourself, Patty. You guys, there you go, almost. There,
Okay, can you hear me?
yes.
The fields yield up their produce to feed our bodies. The sun shares its warmth through the cold reaches of space. The birds chorus songs from trees and sky. Time gives us hours and days and years to spend. Life provides for us unparalleled blessings. Creation gives and we receive. Always we are receiving. Is that a surprise? Some gifts must be given. There's no choice. The givers have no say in the matter. We do.
We do. Thank you, Patty. That was from Dick Gilbert, who's a UU minister who served the big UU church in Rochester for many, many years. And he actually preached here 4 or 5 years ago. Please join now in singing hymn number 404, What Gift Can We Bring? We give because someone gave to us. We give because nobody gave to us. We give because giving has changed us. We give because giving could have changed us. We give to this Unitarian Universalist congregation because it matters to us and because it cannot exist without our gifts. It can't exist without our gifts of time, of thoughtfulness, of care and compassion for one another, and it can't exist without our gifts of money. So what is money? What is money? When I was very little, money was my weekly allowance. It was, I think, 25 cents in the form of 2 dimes and a nickel. And I do know that one of the dimes went into a pastel-colored Sunday school donation envelope that I would then put in the basket during children's chapel every week. There were different pastel colors, and the yellows were my favorite. And if there was a 5 Sunday month, the last envelope was white. I did not like the white ones. My parents had bigger envelopes, all of which were white. And on some Sundays, my father would stay after church, standing around a table in the church basement, in the back of the church basement, with other men, opening envelopes and sorting money and presumably checks into piles. We weren't really supposed to go over there. It felt serious and mysterious, something that was just for grown-ups. Well, money has almost completely lost its connection to anything physical, especially now when so many of our transactions are virtual and remote. When was the last time you paid for something in cash? I use it occasionally, I confess. I still use it to tip the person who cuts my hair, and I have not loaded the downtown parking app on my phone, so I still use quarters at the parking stations, and some people, including probably the person I live with, would say that makes me a Luddite. So the Luddites, as you may know or you may not, were protesters in the first part of the 19th century England. And they went around smashing looms in cotton mills and woolen mills when the processes of weaving and knitting were becoming automated. And the term Luddite became associated with anyone who rejects or refuses to adopt or adapt to technological change. The original Luddites got their name, I learned, from a man named Ned Ludd, who was a weaver from a town near Leicester. Well, I happen to know that I have ancestors on my father's side from that part of England, so maybe Ned and I have some ancestors way back somewhere. In pre-industrial Europe, money took the form of something called a tally stick. A tally stick began as a single stick, about that wide, maybe, that was marked with a system of notches that represented the amounts owed and paid, kind of like a ruler, I guess. And after it was notched, it was split lengthwise, right at the knuckle there. That way, both halves had notches in the same places, and both the buyer and seller had a record of the transaction. So if I raised chickens and you raised candles, we would have a system for figuring out the equivalence between eggs and candles, and we would have marked our sticks accordingly whenever I sold you eggs or you sold me candles. In some rural areas on the European continent, people still used tally sticks into the 20th century. You might call those people Luddites. So money has taken and does take many forms: sticks, coins, bars of gold, paper, ledger entries. Now, physically, it's mostly nanoblips, bits and bytes on servers in the cloud. Money is actually a manifestation of the Unitarian Universalist principle number 7. That's the principle that says we are part of an interdependent web of all existence. Now, you might not like that. You might like to think of number 7 as just about how we relate to the natural world. But we all use money in many, 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 even most of the ways that we navigate and express our relationships and our interdependence. It's a system by which we agree tacitly or explicitly on the terms of exchange and value across an immense web of places and things, services, rights, obligations, experiences, both tangible and intangible. And somehow money allows us in a very complicated way to establish those ratios of equivalence: eggs versus candles, red apples versus yellow apples, a tiny slice of GameStop versus a unit, say, of electric power, an hour of your labor compared to an hour of Tom Brady's. Figure that one out. It's a very elaborate system that only works because, tacitly or explicitly, most of us agree to use it. And for the most part, we really don't have a choice. So we sometimes wonder, or we often wonder, how well money actually works as a system for negotiating our interdependence, or how well it works at reflecting our values. Lewis Henry Lapham was a character who lived from 1858 to 1934. He was an American entrepreneur who first made a fortune consolidating smaller businesses in the leather industry, and then he was one of the founders of Texaco Oil Company. And Lapham wrote that money is like fire, an element as little troubled by moralizing as earth, air, and water. Employ it as a tool, or dance around it as if it were an incarnation of a god. Money votes socialist or monarchist, finds a profit in pornography or translations from the Bible, commissions Rembrandt, and underwrites the technology of Auschwitz. It acquires its meaning from the uses to which it's put. Ann Twist is a philanthropist and a co-founder of the Pachamama Alliance and other good organizations. She wrote, money is like water. Like water, it's a carrier. It can carry blessed energy, possibility and intention, or control, domination, and guilt. It can be a current or currency of love, or a carrier of hurt and harm. So Lapham, the robber baron, and Twist, the humanitarian, both agree that, like water or fire, money acquires its meaning from the uses to which it's put, for good or not. And we all make choices about where our money goes, choices about the use to which our money is put. And one of those choices that so many of us, so many of you make, is to put your money to use on behalf of the congregation. Because I think I've been saying this for 10 years at least, because what we do matters. And what we are doing right now matters. And as Lucy and Kamala both said, we are doing it together. Many, many, many of us. We're looking out for one another. We have a fabulous team of people who help with the technical logistics of Zoom services every week. We are calling and emailing and supporting and shopping for one another. We are facilitating and participating in small groups and in many, many programs. We're opening up and we are being vulnerable to one another in amazing ways. We were an incredible force during the election. We are still actively examining our relationship to racism and our responsibility to confront it in ourselves and in our world. We don't have quite 100 people in that dialogue circle program, but we have between 70 and 75. It's self-paced, you can still join. And there are other people who aren't doing that necessarily, but they're doing other things. They're participating in book groups, they're participating in other programs, they're learning on their own, they're participating in programs outside the society. Your board, the Board of Trustees, has made a commitment to examine the ways in which we might widen our circle, examine and challenge our assumptions about being welcoming. And we'll begin next fall using last spring's UUA Commission report called Widening the Circle as a guide. Next week, we'll all attend a UUA-wide worship service called Side with Love, as what I hope will be one of the an inspiring look at some of the aspects of that work and some of the aspects of the ideas in that report through worship and music. It should be a fabulous service, so I hope you come. Our climate action, racial justice, and USNF The Vote teams are working together to continue active participation in causes and initiatives that matter, including voting rights and trying to stave off the proposed biomass plant in Springfield. Someone wrote this in our most recent plan document a few years ago, doing our best to nurture the light within each one of us. We are doing our best to sustain hope and resilience. And we're doing all of this in spite of, in defiance, really, of the challenges of nearly a year living through a pandemic. Nearly a year. And we know that uncertainty hangs over the next several months and well beyond that. We know that many, many, many people, including some in our congregation, are suffering financial hardship, do need help, will continue to need help. We know there have been and will continue to be calls from all directions on donations and contributions. Not today, but the clouds are lifting, or we hope will soon. And there is also uncertainty about what our congregational life will be like in the year ahead. It's likely we'll face new challenges and new expenses. Once we're able to meet in person, we're committed to still offering worship online, and probably some of our programming as well through live streaming. That will mean some more changes in the way we do things, perhaps, almost certainly, some kinds of new equipment in the Great Hall. I know that so many of you have been generous with your money in many directions, that you give and have given out of compassion, out of a commitment to a vision of greater equity and fairness, out of your love and passion for the planet or your devotion to the arts. And I know and am very grateful that you have been so generous in supporting this congregation. Probably not very many of you were paying attention or remember this, but back in November, I'm reminding you that your generosity and your commitment allowed the board to reinstate the salary raises for staff that had been removed from the budget for this fiscal year before the membership approved it at the August annual meeting. There was some conversation about that at the annual meeting. But because of your generosity and ongoing commitment, Jessica, Lisa, Annie, and Frank all got the raises that had been planned for them before COVID descended upon us. That is thanks to you. So what does this have to do with next year? Your ability to commit now as best you can to what you will give beginning next September will help us go forward in these uncertain times with greater confidence. Your generosity and commitment will continue to ensure that we compensate the staff in a way that honors our respect and gratitude for the jobs that they do. Compensation is by far the largest chunk. It's nearly 80% of our budget. Soon, if you haven't already, about a third of you will get a call or an email from someone to talk with you about the Unitarian Society of Northampton and Florence and what giving means. Even if you meet outside in person, I'm 99.9% sure they will not bring a tally stick to mark with the amount that you owe. They will bring their love and their hopes for this Unitarian Universalist community. I invite you to welcome the call as an opportunity to make another connection, to share what's happening for you, to listen to what's happening for them. Let us make our commitments, offer our gifts as generously as we can. The amount we are able to give is not ever a measure of our value of people or members of this community. Every gift matters and makes a difference. Those of us who can do more, do more. Those of us, we all give what we can. And with every gift, we offer each other hope. As Dick Gilbert reminded us, life provides for us unparalleled blessings, even now, even in these times. It is true. Creation gives and we receive. Some gifts must be given. The givers have no say in the matter. But we do. Let us give in gratitude for all the blessings that life provides, including this community and one another. And now, please rise again in body or spirit and join in singing hymn number 1.
And may it
If here you find meaning, take it with you into the world. If here you find comfort, share it with one another. If here you dream dreams, help one another to make them come true. Go in peace. Thank you.